Good morning, everyone. Welcome back to another homegrown lecture series brought to you by Texas A&M AgriLife Extension Service. Today we do have Shannon Dietz talking about backyard poultry. We don't have the flyer up right now, but our next one is in March with me about the top tea questions, turf tomatoes, and oh my gosh, trees. So yeah, you can go ahead and sign up for that now. Um, in the meantime, we will go ahead and get started with Shannon. Shannon, thank you for doing another talk.
Well, thank you, Brandy. Good morning, everyone. Coming to you live this morning from one of my favorite places in the United States, um, New Orleans. I am actually here video conferencing with you from my hotel room. I'm currently at the National Cattlemen's Beef Association meeting in New Orleans, and it's been a great time. So I appreciate the opportunity to come to you wherever you're listening to, whether it be in the United States or Texas or around the world. Welcome to my backyard poultry workshop or presentation this morning. So again, my name is Shannon Dietz. I am the Agriculture and Natural Resources Agent for Texas A&M AgriLife Extension based in Harris County. And this morning, I'm excited to share with you some poultry information, some backyard poultry information. This is probably the third time I presented backyard poultry information, and it seems like the topic only gets stronger and stronger each time I present to you. So there's always interest in having or people wanting to have backyard flocks, whether it be for different reasons, and we'll get into those in a little bit. And so I'm excited to share some information. This will be an overview of a lot of information, guys. So I apologize if it's too much, but I did want to say, like I said, give you an overview on it. So we're going to touch base on a couple different topics that I think that you should be aware of in getting into this type of project, whether with it be with you or your family or something. And so feel free to drop questions that you might have into the chat box, and Miss Shannon, our program assistant for Ag and Natural Resources in Harris County, and Miss Brandy, who introduced me, is going to be monitoring the room, and they'll either be able to answer your questions or stop me in the presentation and ask the question, and hopefully we'll be able to get you going there. So without further ado, we're going to go ahead and get started with the program. We do have a lot of information to cover. And so a lot of times we get calls, or I get calls into the office in Houston about if they can raise chickens in Houston and Harris County. And this is really not just Houston or Harris County, but any urban area, I guess a lot of people have interest in. Most of the time, if you're in a rural setting or something like that, that's not usually an issue that you have come up or anything. But if you have neighbors to the right and to the left of you, or if you live in an HOA or something like that, people are always concerned about that. But specifically with Houston and Harris County, you can raise chickens in your backyard with the conditions that there be no more than 30 hens with no roosters allowed, no outdoor alarm clocks, please, which roosters are tend to be known for. And they must be at least 100 feet away from neighbors, schools, churches. But like I always say, if you have a neighbor that's a holdout, you can always bribe them with free eggs. So right now, that is basically, if you look at all the memes that are happening on Facebook and social media around the world, they are kind of worth their weight in gold. So if you haven't been to the grocery store lately, you'll know why I'm talking about that, and we'll touch base on that a little bit. And that might be one of the reasons why you're interested in backyard poultry. So we'll continue on, and with that, I want to have you become familiar with some of the terminology when it comes to raising chickens or poultry in general. Remember, when we talk about poultry, we're not only talking about chickens, but we're also talking about ducks, we're talking about geese, we're talking about turkeys. So whether you're looking for a specific species in any of those areas, it's just most common that we mostly talk about poultry. So a lot of the information that we're going to be providing to you today is going to be in that particular arena. So first, when we talk about layers, these are obviously hens that are intended for producing eggs. So when we talk about or we go through some of this terminology, one of the things that you're going to want to establish for either you or your family or your backyard situation or something like that is, what are your goals? Do you want poultry with the intended use of supplying your family with eggs, or do you want to supply your family with meat production, which would be under broilers? And if you want a little bit of both worlds, you would go with a dual purpose breed. And those are birds that offer a compromise by providing eggs and adequate meat quality. So you're going to have, in the world of poultry, you have some chickens that are very excellent layers that produce numerous eggs, sometimes up to an egg a day, which doesn't sound like a lot, but when you have, say, maybe example, like 10 layers, and they're all producing 10 eggs a day, you better be ready to make some scrambled eggs or cakes or what have you, because you are going to be dealing with getting a lot of eggs. So that's why I say you might want to make friends with your neighbors and stuff. So think ahead. You don't want to get in a situation where you're going to work too much and, have all these eggs, and then you're like, oh no, what do I need to do now? How do I tone it down? Well, you can't really tone it down because the chickens are going to be laying eggs every day. So that is something that you're going to want to think about before when you're making your quote business plan on how you want to move forward. When we talk about broody breeds, these are hens that hatch their own chicks. They tend to rest more than layers. Free range chickens, we hear this term a lot, whether it be free range eggs or free range fryers or broilers or something like that. These are chickens that tend to be raised outside of fence constrictions and so forth, more on rural properties. If you're confined to a small suburban area with a small backyard space, you're not going to really want to focus on free range chickens too much, but that's where that term comes from. They tend to be they don't handle the confinements of penning and coops very much. Excuse me. The bantam, when you hear about bantam, so there are several different sizes of chickens. There are the standards, they are the bantam size there, and they are the large size. All right. So standard and large size, some of these chickens can get anywhere in the size of, doing my research, and I'm not a poultry scientist by all means, but some of these larger breeds can get anywhere from 12 to 15 pounds. And your bantams are going to run more on the pound to pound and a half, maybe 2 pound max kind of type thing. So you can see that there's quite a bit of fluctuation there. And that is something that you're going to also want to keep in mind when you're thinking about like space and stuff. Some of these breeds do better actually as pets. Not a lot of people think about poultry as pets, or if you have small children and you want to introduce them to the stages of livestock and how meat production and how eggs are produced and different things like that. There are some bantams that most bantams will produce eggs and so forth, just like a regular sized chicken and so forth, but they're a lot easier to handle. They're a lot easier on the pocketbook because they don't require as much feed and so forth. But even throughout all of the breeds, there are going to be some breeds that are more docile, some that are going to be more affectionate than others. You would not think, but yes, there are. So keep that in mind. Next, we want to talk about chicken coops. All right. So and I'm not sure how many of you in here actually have backyard poultry production or operations already in place. Some of you might be thinking about getting into the arena. Some of you might be a lot more experienced than I am and everything. So I apologize if I'm sharing information with you that you might already know about. But chicken coops are generally basically chicken houses. All right, general term used with housing and shelter. And we're going to talk a little bit later about how important chicken coops are when we start talking about predators, when we start talking about ventilation, we start talking about protection from the environment and so forth. So chicken coops can be homemade, they can be bought. There is on Pinterest many different types of chicken coops. Some of these look like miniature houses. You can go as fancy or you can go as basic as you'd like. So that really is your option. Roost. This is what chickens usually do at night when a lot of times they'll rest in trees. They'll keep that basically they'll be off the ground. All right. You can also fix a roosting rod in your chicken coop where that will be something that they can sit on at night. So keeping them away from predators, but also still being able to roost and feel like they're in a tree or something. Bedding. This is something that is scattered over the coop floor to absorb moisture and manure. All right. It also serves a dual purpose to cushion the bird's feet. You never want to put anything down that's going to be slick, like cardboard or newspaper or anything that's going to be a slick substance, I guess, because their feet are not intended for that. Pine, no, sawdust, wood shavings is probably the best way to go with this. And so we don't encourage, a lot of, early on you can mix some newspaper down, especially like when they're newborn chicks and different things like that. But we'll go into that a little bit down the road. Crop. This is where the chickens store food temporarily until it goes into the true stomach. So if you're interested into the anatomy of the chicken and how that food is digested and how it's actually broken down, the crop is actually where the food gets ground up. And so interesting anatomy that the chickens have, especially when it comes to actually developing an egg inside of it. So we can share that information. We won't be getting into the anatomy very much today because we just don't have the time for that. But I did want to make you aware of that. Predators, that involves any animal outside of your bird that wants your hens for their dinner, basically. So unfortunately, chicken, poultry is not only palatable to man, but it's palatable to many different predators out there. So just keep that in mind. If you're in an area that doesn't have many predators that you've seen before, when you start raising chickens, you will be inviting different types of predators to your area. So you need to make that a priority, and you need to make sure that you are aware and that your family is safe and so forth like that. If you have other pets, dogs, cats, or anything like that, all of those are going to be subject to predator involvement and so forth, I guess. Molting, this is a natural process where chickens go through, usually in the fall or winter. Egg production usually slows down. Molting is whenever involving the feathers. So every fall and winter, they'll go through this. And so it's just something, a natural process that poultry goes through. So when we talk about how many hens for your flock, we talk about there are three golden rules, and basically it breaks it down to time, space, and the affordability. All right. So keep no more chickens than you have space for. So chickens, even though they don't seem like they take up a lot of space, they do cover a lot of space when they're in the pen area or the coop area. So the rule is about 4 foot of space per chicken in a coop, and or whenever they're outside of the coop, usually about 6 foot of space. So that gives that chicken plenty of time to scavenge. Chickens are natural predators. They will help control the insect population in your yard. They're constantly looking for grubs, worms, insects, mosquitoes, anything like that. So they do serve a benefit in that area, but they don't like the competition. All right. So you need to make sure that they have plenty of room to roam and so forth. Um, Keep no more than you have time for. This is a project that you cannot just put together and then put out there and forget about. All right. There are so many different stages in poultry production that families need to be aware of, and it's going to take a family effort. Or if you're an individual by yourself, you will see that it is going to be take every bit of your time just as much as you're dealing with sometimes large animals as well. Because when it comes time for cleaning, sanitation, feeding, caring for, egg gathering, different things like that, all of that adds up in time over the day, and it's spread out throughout the day. All right. They don't have alarm clocks that they work by or anything like that. So you're constantly working with them throughout the day. And then you also want to make sure that you have the budget to maintain these. All right. So housing. If something happens in the chicken coop, you have to be aware of that and you have to fix that situation. If the fencing goes down, you have to be able to take care of that. And then not only that, but just the general cost of feed itself. The cost of feed, like human feed itself, has gone up quite a bit over the last couple of years, just because of the fact that backyard poultry has gotten to be much more popular, I guess. And so big box stores and industry are paying attention to that. So also with the cost of feed, there is the shortage of corn, different things like that and everything. So just want to make sure that you keep all that in mind whenever you're looking at an overall budget. 3 basic types of poultry, and we already kind of talked about these real quick, so we're not going to spend a lot of time on this. But in the very beginning, remember that we talked about goals. Or your goals going to be for basically primary for egg production, or you're going to want it for meat production, or you're just going to want them for exhibition birds or just looking pretty in your yard. Basically, there are several breeds, and we won't get into a lot of them today, that really have really fancy plumage, really fancy crest on the top of their heads, have really fancy combs. Some of them have bigger combs than others. Some of them have feathers on their feet. So there's so much a variety of chickens out there and everything. So that is something I remember in the beginning where I talked about research and so forth. That is going to be something that you're going to have to do on your own. And I do have some resources that Ms. Shannon and Brandy are sharing with y'all today. There are a lot of excellent university publications out there. University of Georgia, Texas A&M University, Poultry Science, and Kentucky all have great poultry science departments and plenty of publications that you can read up on everything from diseases to flock management to what breeds to grow, to raise and stuff like that. And so there's an abundance of material and information out there. And I suggest that you take the time to do some research and read up on some of these before you go any further. Next, we're going to go into some popular backyard chicken breeds. And again, we talked about a couple of different ones already, but I'm just going to kind of highlight a couple of these that are more popular in the United States. And keep in mind that some of these breeds of chickens have come from all around the world. China, England, France, the United States, Canada. So they're all bred just like any livestock for certain qualities, certain environmental factors, and so forth. Some of them do better in in high temperatures. Some of them do better in cold. Some of them are more aggressive than others. You're going to want to make sure that you pay attention to that. Some of them are high egg layers. You can get anywhere from 250 to 300 eggs per year out of one chicken. And just in case you're wondering, a layer will usually produce anywhere from about 15 to 18 months of good egg production. After that time, their egg production cycle is going to start to slow down. You're probably going to want to call them from your flock and introduce new hens at that point, if you want to keep that egg production going and so forth. So about 15 to 18 months with most breeds is going to be what you can get out of a good layer that's going to provide you with eggs throughout that time. Again, depending on the breed that you choose, it's going to be, you will have a production of a medium egg, a large egg, or a small egg. So it really depends. The first one we're going to talk about is the Rhode Island Red. It's a dual purpose breed. It is the state bird of Rhode Island, go figure. It's got excellent temperament and usually starts laying eggs around 18 to 20 weeks. A good hen can lay about 200 to 300 eggs a year and will lay around 5 to 6 eggs a week, medium to large and light in color. They're active scavengers. Remember, we talked about that before. They're constantly going out there and looking for grubs, insects, and different things like that. They're constantly scratching the ground with their claws and stuff. So they love exploring and so forth. So Rhode Island Red, actually a good variety for us here in the United States. Wyandotte have an average lifespan pretty long, actually, 6 to 12 years, originating in the state of New York. And the name actually comes from a North American Indian tribe. And they're a dual purpose breed, and they're at least a standard to large side breed. They have high production of eggs, and they're very docile and friendly. And so they make good pets. They they're good around kids and so forth, and they lay approximately about 200 eggs a year. And you can see the different color variations there. Most breeds of chickens will go with a particular color pattern, but there will be some variations in some breeds out there. Americana, this is a breed variation of the Americana poultry. Fairly recent addition. Another dual purpose breed that is winter hardy. So if you're watching today from northern United States where it's really cold, temperatures are frigid and everything like this one, this does really well in the northern United States. Comes in a variety of colors: black, blue, wheaten, and considered a lightweight fowl, around 6.5 pounds for male and 5.5 pounds for females. But one of the interesting qualities is it produces a light blue eggs, but don't expect them in the normal 18 to 20 weeks like most layers that we talked about earlier. They take a little bit longer to start producing those. And when we talk about nutritional value, white eggs versus brown eggs versus blue eggs, again, the nutritional value is going to be the same on all of them. All right. Next is the Orpington. This is a large fowl, and it should be around 10 pounds for a male and 8 pounds for a female. So they do come in on the heavyweight side. They come in buff, black, white, and blue. Very docile, very friendly. Good to be around small kids. Can be treated as a family pet, and their feathers make them very cold hardy. And they lay around 200 to 200 eggs per year, so a high laying factor. And they're already for table production, if you choose to do so, as far as a meat variety, around 22 weeks. All right. So let's talk a little bit about budget. We kind of talked about, we talked briefly on it a little while ago, and this just kind of breaks down to give you an idea of what all you can be expecting to spend some money on. Again, this is only an estimation. You can choose to go cheaper, you can choose to go more expensive on this, but this just gives you a kind of a little breakdown to kind of give you an idea of what people spend on out there. The biggest fluctuating factor, I guess, is when it comes to housing. Again, you can choose to build something homemade from things that you might have around your house. If you or anybody in your family is very handy and you can put together a chicken coop, all the more better. There are plenty of ideas out there on Pinterest. There are plenty of ideas out there on YouTube on putting together a coop and so forth. The main thing that you're going to want to consider when you're talking about a coop is that it's going to have the proper ventilation and it's also going to have the proper security. So the ventilation is going to come in part, like especially if you're watching from southern United States or Texas in general, you do know that our summers are very are very hot. We have a lot of humidity in the air and everything, so you're going to want to make sure that that ventilation is there. And that's going to cut down on that ammonia. It's going to cut down on, and it's going to open up that airflow in there, because you do not want to introduce heat stress into your poultry flock. That's going to be a bad thing, and we're going to talk a little bit about that. So the next thing is security. You're going to want to make sure if you have doors on there, that all the doors lock. They shut easily. You can put all your chickens in there, and then whatever's in there stays in there, and whatever's on the outside doesn't get in on the outside. And we're talking about predators. So there are several feed stores in and around the Houston area, Harris County area, that will put together, or you can buy coops already made, and you just have them either deliver it, or you can pick it up yourself. So the opportunities are endless on that. Heat lamp, bulb, feeders, and waters. So the heat lamp and bulb, that's really if you're raising chickens from chicks, and if you're wondering where you would even get started with chicks, if you would want to do that, we have publications on reputable breeders where you can buy eggs if you want to start with a heat lamp and actually start with incubation of and hatching of the chickens, especially a really cool project if you have small kids or grandkids. Or you can start with chicks already, and then cut out the incubation process, or start with full-size grown chickens ready to start laying eggs. So there are plenty of feed stores in and around the Houston area that can match any of your criteria that you're looking for. And then just going down the list, chicks, you can expect to spend about $250 a piece on those, and you see, but the biggest expense here is going to come from your bags of feed, your chick starter, early bird grower, layer feed, and different things like that. So again, these prices do fluctuate. Don't hold me to these prices per bag, but you can see how the cost will add up. But it's going to be a savings whether you want to spend this money and have the enjoyment of a new hobby, or you're going to want to spend it on your egg production. If you have a family that chooses to eat a lot of eggs throughout the year, you might end up saving money in the long run by having your own poultry flock. I'm going to take a breather there. Shannon or Brandy, any questions on the presentation so far?
Yes, we have one question, and they're asking what would be a good coop for about 8 chickens.
So I'm not really sure how to answer that question. So a good coop. You might want to ask them to come back and ask them to be a little bit more specific on what they are looking for, because I'm not really sure how to address that. So maybe just reach back out to them, ask them if they're looking for anything in specific, and we can go from there.
Okay.
Any other questions right now? Otherwise, we'll continue on.
No other questions.
Okay. So continuing on with the cost of feed and everything, we talk about the subject of what should I feed my hens. All right, so there are nutrients required to maintain a healthy flock, just like nutrients we require as humans to be healthy individuals and so forth. So first and foremost, the main and the most important one, which we're going to talk about several times throughout the presentation, is water. Chicks and poultry, whether it be ducks, geese, turkeys, whatever, need water constantly throughout the day. All right. Some water is going to be obviously needed more seasonally, depending on what time you're in. And so we'll talk more about that. Carbohydrates, fat, protein, vitamins, minerals. Again, these are all things that you see in a human diet. So these are all things that you need to keep a healthy flock. If you're going to invest the time and the money in raising chickens, you want to do this right. So you're not going to want to skimp on any of these things. You're not going to want to put together some type of homemade meal or anything like that, or just have your chickens feed off of insects, scavenging in your yard, or throwing them scraps from the table or anything like that. You're really going to want to invest in some high quality feed supplements and meal, whether they be in the areas of, like I said, chick production. And you're going to want to make sure that the nutrients and the proteins and the minerals and everything follow the age range of what the chicken is that you have. So obviously, if you start with a small chick, you're going to want to start with chick feed. All right. And it usually changes about every 8 weeks. So you can expect to go through quite a bit of feed, especially if you have say maybe example 8 to 10 chicks on the ground. All right, they're going to grow really quick during a short amount of time. So they need that energy. They need those carbohydrates and everything. And then, like I said, it shows in the second column there the types of commercial poultry feeds, starters, growers, finishers, and layers. And you're going to be able to find all these particular feeds at all these feed stores in and around the county, or wherever county that you're at. So if they have any type of information on poultry, if they sell chicks or they sell chickens there, they're also going to have this type of feed there. So make sure you, just like with a vet, if you have any other types of animals that you have on your at your house or on your farm or whatever, that you get to know your vet really well. You're also going to want to know the salespeople at the place where you buy your chickens and your feed and stuff like that, because they're going to want to help you as much as possible. They're going to be your resource person. Another resource person is going to be your county ag agent wherever you're at. All right, so it doesn't matter what county you're in the United States. There's one of me across the United States. I wish that I was the only one out there. Not really, because that would be too many questions to answer. But I do have many knowledgeable colleagues across the United States. In every state, we are located at all the land-grant universities. We have specialists in all the United States at all the land-grant universities. So any of us can be reached out to with any of your specific questions. The next thing we want to talk about was water. And we'll talk about the importance of it. Unfortunately, my slide is not working here. So I'm just going to tell you that water is very important when it comes to the age of the chicken. All right. Water is going to be important in the development of a new chick just as much as the feed is. All right. So you're going to want to make sure that you keep those waters clean, filled with water. Your chickens have aren't going to like any odor to the type of water or anything like that. So you're going to want to make sure it's clean, fresh water that you change out daily. Not going to want to have it dirty. You're also going to want to have a lot of water on hand if the chickens are laying, producing eggs. All right, there's a lot of water that go into this production of making an egg in a chicken. So you're not going to want to deprive the chicken of that if you provide the feed and the nutrients and all that stuff, and then you forget to change the water, or you don't change the, or you go a couple days without filling the water bin or something like that, you're just going to be hurting yourself, and you're going to be hurting your flock. All right. The daily temperature, obviously, the hotter, the more humidity there is in your particular area. Just like humans, chickens need water to stay cool, to help regulate the body temperature and everything. So, keep that in mind. All right. So when we talk about watering, if you've never dealt with chickens before, there are many different types of containers out there that can provide water. And so really, again, just like with chicken coops, you can choose to spend a lot of money on waters, or you can spend the basic amount. It really doesn't matter. These are 3 different types here. The first one is found at any feed store. Basically, it's a little tray. The white component comes off and unscrews. You fill it in. Acts almost kind of like a hummingbird feeder. You turn it over, screw the lid down, and then the water comes out as needed. The picture in the middle, I think, came off of Pinterest. This is something, this is a homemade waterer. This is actually some 2 and 3 liter soda bottles that people were able to put together and make their own type of feeders from. You can see you're always going to want to keep the water level with the poultry that you're trying to provide, at least. And so keep that in mind with the feed as well. And then the third picture, this is it's a little type of contraption that the chickens actually get to be trained. So the chickens would actually push on the lever of the yellow, I guess, for lack of better words, button in that picture, and it would act as a dispenser to put fresh, clean water into that bowl, and the chickens would drink from that. So chickens are easily trainable. So don't sell them short on that. They can learn to do tasks like this and so forth. So again, many different types of options available to you. Brown eggs versus white eggs. Remember, we talked about this early on. Again, there's no nutritional value between the difference of brown eggs and white eggs. It just so happens that the market is more in tune to, in the past, consumer wanted to buy white eggs. You mostly find brown eggs when you buy from farms or farmers markets or anything like that. Your free range chickens are going to come in brown eggs. And again, this all just has to do with the pigment that is added to the feed to change the color of the eggshell. All right. So white eggs obviously have no pigment color added to it. Brown eggs, for the science of it, I'm not going to get into it, but there's different nutrient components that you can add to change to make blue eggs versus brown eggs and so forth. Some of them are just natural. All right. And you can see a list there if you are looking at chicken breeds that produce primarily white eggs versus brown eggs. Again, some of these we talked about before: Orpington, Sussex, Wyandotte, Brahma, all produce brown eggs. Leghorn, Polish, Andalusian, all produce white eggs and so forth. So again, this is simple information that you can find out there when you start doing your research and so forth. But if you have a preference one over the other, make sure you add this to your list on what you want to accomplish.
Hey, Shannon, can I hop in for a sec?
Yes.
All right, I've got one question asking about, are there any concerns or pros and cons to keeping a rooster of one breed and having hens of other breeds?
No. So again, your layers are going to produce eggs. The only time you need a rooster is if you want chicks. All right. It's the basic anatomy of male and female. All right. So the rooster is only there to fertilize the egg. If there's no rooster there to fertilize the eggs are just going to be eggs used for production for consumers. All right. that you normally use in a kitchen setting. The only time you would need a rooster is if you want those eggs fertilized and you want chicks to be able to be reproduced. And you don't normally want to go too much outside of the breed that you're working with, just because you're going to have different breed specifics and so forth like that. So ideally, you're going to want to try and keep it all in the same. But if you have like a random rooster that you have in the coop or something like that, that's not a problem. All right. So unfortunately, when we talk about poultry, we always have to talk about biosecurity and disease management. We always want to make sure that we're treating our birds with the utmost safety. And so we're always going to want to purchase healthy stock, go with a reputable breeder, go with somebody who's going to produce eggs that are, has a good survival rate and so forth like that. You're going to want to keep your birds confined using pasture coops or fencing. And we're going to talk a little bit about that when it comes to predators. Keep your dirty equipment and materials away from the flock. Do not mix birds in general. Quarantine for at least 3 weeks. And what that means there is, guys, if you have an established flock already of, say, maybe 5 to 6 layers, and you're going to bring in about 4 or 5 more, all right, and you're getting these from another breeder or something, just like with any livestock, you're going to want to keep them in quarantine, keep them in separate quarters until that quarantine period is over for about 3 weeks, to make sure that you're not introducing any disease or any new pest or anything like that into your established flock already. And if you see that they're fine after that 3 weeks, you can go ahead and introduce them to your regular flock, and they should be fine. Unfortunately, rodents come with the fact that you're going to be raising poultry. Rodents are going to, they will get into your poultry coop area. They will go after small chicks, and they will also go after the grain or the feed. So you want to make sure that you have a special lockup for your feed. You're going to want to keep them in canisters, or like what I use a lot is like the aluminum trash cans with a lid. Keep those bags of feed in there. When you're done with it, put it, make sure the bag stays in the container, and you just secure the lid on it. You have should have no issues with rodent control or anything like that. But if you do see droppings, or that you have rodents in the area, you want to make sure that you tackle that problem right away. Keep buildings in good repair and waste and debris free. You're always going to wash hands before and after handling birds, and wear dedicated clothing and footwear when working around birds. That talks about that biosecurity. You're not going to be bringing or introducing any new disease or anything like that into the flock area, into the coop area. When you go, you can put like a little foot wash. You can wear special boots. You can put a little trough near where you go in and out, and you can rinse your boots in like a bleach water mixture solution to make sure that you kill any diseases coming in and out. And so it's little things like that that's going to keep your birds safe. We also have to make sure that we talk about highly pathogenic avian influenza, HPAI. Unfortunately, it's a very fatal disease for poultry. Most of the time, your first signs are going to be gasping and digestive signs, very bad diarrhea for chickens. And usually when you notice it, it happens very rapidly. All right. So there's not a lot of time that you see the onset of this. Other signs, you may see swelling around the head, the neck, the eyes, and maybe some purple discoloration around the legs. And so unfortunately, whenever you do have HPAI, the only thing that will save, well, you will have to eliminate your flock. You'll have to euthanize your flock and start over. You'll have to come in and totally disinfect the area. And you'll have to let it sit in quarantine for at least several weeks to make sure that there's no disease or bacterial prevalent whenever you bring the new flock in. What introduces HPAI is other poultry species or other birds that come in, wild birds to your house. So if you have birds that you feed, say like cardinals or blue jays or crows or anything like that, that you live in an area that you have other birds, you're going to want to make sure that you have netting over the top of your coop space or where your chickens roam and so forth like that. So anytime you have the introduction of wild species of birds into your poultry flock, that increases your HPAI contraction for your flock significantly. All right. And you're also going to want to limit those visits who visit your home. You're not going to want to have a lot of people. You're not going to want to have a lot of kids come there and go and play with the chickens and stuff like that. Anytime you have that, you have disease transmission from the flock to the person, and then from the person to the flock. So it goes both ways, guys. All right. Sanitation. Apparently there is another slide here that is not working for me, but basically what this comes down to is that you're going to want to clean your coop at least every week. All right. Again, this is a time management thing. This is something we talked about early on. This is something that you need to make sure that you have time for. Feeders and waters need to be cleaned weekly. You're going to want to make sure that you take them apart, clean them, scrub them. If you have any algae or anything growing on them, you're going to want to clean them with a disinfectant solution that is suitable for poultry. All right. So again, you have that connection with your feed store or wherever that you're buying your feed from or your chicks from. You're going to want to make sure that they can recommend a good disinfectant solution for that. You're going to want to have a dust bath available for your chicks. Chicks can get mites. Chicks and poultry can get mites. They can get lice. So these dust baths help the chickens control those factors and so forth like that. But if you're prone to allergies and so forth, be smart, guys. Okay, you're going to want to make sure that you mask up. You're going to want to make sure that you wear a bandana or face mask or anything like that, because you're going to be breathing all this stuff in, especially when you're cleaning out the coop, whenever you're cleaning out the manure, cleaning out the wood shavings and different things like that. There's a lot of stuff that can get in your respiratory system, and if you're prone to that, it could really make you sick. All right. So my timer was going off. All right. Predators. So we talked about predators, and here is just a list of common predators, guys. Coyotes, cats. Don't forget cats and dogs. These are your household pets if you have them there. If they've never been exposed to chickens or chicks or anything like that before, they're going to be naturally curious, and they just like my dogs at home, they're going to want to chase the chickens, and the dogs might just think they're playing with them. The chickens don't think they're playing with them. They're running for their life. So you're going to want to make sure that that's all in place, that everybody has their particular area that they know they can play in. They have boundaries and different things like that. Again, if you're in an area that you don't think there are a lot of predators, a lot of these predators happen during the evening or early morning when we're sleeping. All right. So you might want to invest in some type of camera. If you notice that you have chickens going missing, and again, these threats can happen from the land and from the air. All right. Chicken hawks, vultures, buzzards, anything like that flying can swoop in, and if you don't have that protective net, fly off with one of your flocks or one of your broilers or your layers or something like that. Okay. Owls, possums, rats, raccoons, skunks. The list is endless, guys. So just make sure, and I didn't even get into snakes, all right? There are snakes that will get in there and just eat the eggs, chicken snakes. And so you'll go in there, and when you're when you're picking eggs from the coop one day and you accidentally grab a snake, that is not a good situation to be in. They are not poisonous usually, but they just do go after the chicken eggs and so forth. So be prepared if you're going to be, again, getting into this project. We're running out of time, so I'm just going to kind of speed through some of these. But again, if you want more information on any of these topics that I've gone over today, feel free to reach out to me. My email will be on the final slide, and I will be glad to share any information and answer any questions you have on this. We talked about heat stress. When does it occur? So the average body temperature of a chicken is about 60 degrees, 60 to 75 degrees. Anytime it gets over 85 degrees is when you start introducing heat stress. Again, this is fatal to birds. Electrolytes do really good, or do wonders for chickens. Electrolytes, you can make your own solution of electrolytes, or you can buy the electrolytes and you're going to just dilute it in the water. This just adds a little pick-me-up, kind of type thing. It adds those nutrients and minerals and other things that chickens might be lacking when it comes to heat stress and so forth. If it's not too bad, you're going to want to kind of go light on the electrolytes. If the chickens seem to be not handling it as well, and they are on the side where they look like they're a little bit sicker than normal, you might want to double up or strengthen the dose of the electrolytes available. So in closing, guys, just want to let everybody know that you want to always do your research and establish your goals before you get into the poultry backyard project any further. If you're starting off, again, plenty of information out there. I would be glad to help you get started, as well as any of my colleagues around the United States and everything, to be able to answer some of your questions. Don't farm more than you can handle, guys. And I'm serious when I talk about this. If you think a few eggs is great to start off with, and you can't keep up after a month or so, when your chickens really start laying, you have 5 or 6 layers, and you're starting to get six eggs a day. That doesn't seem like a lot, but when you start talking about 6 eggs a day times 7 days a week, you're looking at 46 eggs, 42 eggs, 50 eggs. Depends on if they are high layers or not. So you have to make sure that you have something to do with those eggs, because the shelf life only goes so far. Poultry farming, just like any type of farming, requires time and patience. Make sure that if it's a project with the family, everybody knows what their job is, their strength in numbers, because it's a great opportunity for kids and grandkids to learn responsibility, to make sure the water is always done, the feed is always fed, and the chicken coop is clean. So it's a great project to start as a family project. Always be prepared for predators, guys. We just got finished talking about this. Again, that list is not inclusive of all the predators out there. I just want to make you aware that, when you do introduce chickens to your area, whether it be backyard or rural area, something like that, if you've not seen predators before, you will be putting out the welcome mat for predators, because they are always on the lookout for food. And this is going to be something that they will always try and get in. So you're going to want to make sure that they are protected at all lengths. And make friends and share your bounty. Again, if you have neighbors and families nearby, consider it maybe a family project, and share your eggs, share your broilers, share the meat and so forth like that. It's a great opportunity to be a great neighbor. And with that being said, I want to thank you all for joining us today. I enjoyed sharing this information with you. Again, my information is there. I'm the County Extension Agent for Ag and Natural Resources with Texas A&M AgriLife Extension in Harris County. My email address is shannon.dietz@ag.tamu.edu. And no matter where you are, you can always find information from your County Extension Agent office, no matter where you're viewing from today. So with that, I'm just going to go ahead and wrap it up and see if there's any last minute questions from the group.
Yes, Shannon, there are quite a few questions. Kind of going back to the one that was asked earlier about
Yep.
chicken coop size. How large of a chicken coop would you need for about 8 chickens, maybe square feet?
So each chicken needs, in a coop, we're looking at about 4 foot of space. All right. So 8 chickens, again, it depends on the size of your backyard and everything, but keep in mind the rule is 3 to 4 foot per chicken in a chicken house. You know, if they're with that space on the outside that you're going to have fenced in, you're looking at about 6 foot, 5 to 6 foot of space that they can roam around in. So however many chickens you have, about 3 to 4 foot in the coop, 5 to 6 foot on the outside to scavenge.
All right, I got another question for you. So what is the best way to introduce new chickens to an already established flock?
Yeah, again, you know, we talked about this, about the quarantining. Quarantining is very important. Again, you're going to want to make sure that they're about the same age. You're not going to want to introduce chicks to an established flock that's already laying eggs, or you're always going to want to keep them about the same age. It doesn't matter about the species. You can mix the species and so forth, so that's not a big deal. But when you're mixing species, make sure that you're mixing species that fit your area, all right? Again, there are certain species that do well in heat areas. There are certain species that do well in colder climates and different things like that. So the most important thing is that quarantine time and making sure that you're introducing them at the same age level.
All right, another question, how often should a chicken coop be cleaned?
About once a week.
Okay.
Yep.
And then, you know, we've had a lot of, we've had a lot of cold weather recently, so there are some questions about how cold is too cold for chickens.
Yeah, so if it gets below freezing, you're going to have to introduce some heat lamps. All right, so you can buy just regular heat lamps from any normal feed store, any big box store. You're going to want to keep it in there. You're not going to want to keep it in there very long. All right, you're going to, if you can set it on a timer where it just comes on at night, that's great. You're going to want to make sure that you have enough bedding in there so that they can naturally bed down in the wood shavings and different things. So that will provide body insulation to them and everything. And if you need to, so anytime you're getting below that freezing temperature, which is that 32 degrees, you might want to think about introducing, and again, if it lasts over several days. But again, guys, this isn't going to be anything this should wrap up about this weekend, and we're going to get into much warmer temperatures again. So, you know, if cold temperatures lasted anything more than 3 or 4 days, then, you know, you really need to think about putting that heat lamp in there. But anything less than that, they should be fine.
All right, and I think this will be our last question for today, but what is the shelf life for eggs when you put them in the refrigerator?
So I would go by the expiration date that's listed on the container, all right, on that carton, because it depends on where they're coming from. All right, so really pay attention to, there should be an expiration date on that carton. And the same goes for if you buy them from farmers market or anything like that. Make sure that you ask the person where you're getting them from, because they could have been sitting up, you know, for a week already, you know. So I'm not sure that answer is very subjective. So I would just make sure you go by the carton date or ask the person that you're buying the eggs from.
What about for their own personal flock? Like they just got eggs from one of their hens and they put them in the refrigerator.
Yeah. A couple weeks for sure, you would be good.
All right, I think that was our last question for today.
All right. Thank you, everyone. I had a great time. Again, any questions, feel free to email me. Otherwise, have fun with your new flock and have a great day. Have a great weekend. Happy Mardi Gras.
All right. Thank you, Shannon. And we will see you all back here next month, the first Thursday at 10 a.m. for the top T questions. Have a great weekend.